My name is Mari and I'm a knitter and maker based in beautiful Bergen here in Norway. I like to sew, knit and create garment that brings me joy and fits seamlessly into my life. For me, patterns are more suggestions than rules. I love tweaking them to make garments that suit my life perfectly. My hope is that through this channel I can share my processes with you and maybe even give you permission to break free rules yourself. So whether you're a seasoned knitter or just picking up your first pair of needles, I want this to feel like a casual sit down with a crafty friend. There's something kind of magical about making something you weren't quite sure you'd love, and then you fall in love with it anyway. That's exactly what happened with my Josie hood. This project was a bit of an experiment for me. The yarn was out of my comfort zone, a blend of cotton and baby alpaca, which I don't usually reach for. I've always been a wool kind of girl, through and through, but this fiber combination, it actually surprised me. It's so soft, it gives this lovely drape, and it feels really gentle against the skin. Perfect for something that are going to wrap around your head and neck. This design is by Kristin Nørgaard of NORgardknitters, and it's one of those clever knits that feel both stylish and functional. It's a hood and a scarf all in one, with delicate I-cord at the hem, and it's really warm and protecting when the hood is up. You can wear it both up and down, tied with the delicate I-cords, or you can put up the hood and it's both warm and protective. I used two E-Sager yarns for it, Alpaca 1 in the shade E7 and Eco Baby in shade E8S. Together they created this light, comforting fabric that somehow feels cozy enough for the damp Bergen weather. I knit with my 4.5 Chayu needles, one size down from what the pattern suggested, just to match my looser gauge. And the construction was surprisingly easy. You start from the top, knitting back and forth, and then you pick up stitches along this first part. And you slowly transition from the hood into the scarf part. I don't wear beanies very often. They tend to flatten my hair and I never quite feel like me when I wear them. So this hood has been an attempt at something different. Something that still keeps my ears warm but feels a bit softer. Something that I'm comfortable with. I finished this one early this past year and I've found myself reaching for it again and again. It's the kind of piece that makes sense in my wardrobe, beautifully worn loosely like a shawl, or instantly practical when the skies open up. This Josie hood reminded me that trying something new, a fiber blend, a construction style, even just a different shape, can lead to some really happy surprises. And sometimes the best knits are the ones that nudge us gently out of our comfort zones. Have you ever casted something on just for fun, thinking it would be quick and simple, only to realize halfway through that you're stumbled into a completely new way of thinking about knitting scarves? That's exactly what happened with my Klippesjerf. When I started it as a little just for me project, this quickly became one of my most playful, surprising and joy-filled knits that I made all year. It wasn't just the finished scarf that made me smile, it was the process itself, the experimentation, the unexpected construction, even the moment when I took a deep breath and cut right into my knitting. I didn't expect to fall in love with it, but I did completely. The Klippesjerf, or cutted scarf, is a pattern by Marte of LageLab, a Norwegian designer who really knows how to shake things up. Her designs are always just a little bit unexpected, a little bit clever, and they often encourage you to use what you already have. And I love that about her work. It feels resourceful and imaginative all at once. This scarf starts with a simple I-cord, and from there the magic begins. You pick up stitches along the I-cord and begin knitting outwards in the round to create kind of a tube. When one side is done, you repeat the process on the other side. So you're left with this long, closed cylinder kind of tube, and then you rip back a small section and then you cut it. Yes, you cut into your knitting. Now, I know cutting into your knitting sounds like the stuff of nightmares, but because stitches only unravel vertically, not sideways. This technique actually works beautifully. Still, I wasn't going to do it without a bit of preparation, so I made a test swatch first that helped with the nerves, and once I saw how it worked, I couldn't wait to try it on the real thing. I used Rauma Finull for this project, such a trusty favorite. It's light, rustic, and it's softened beautifully with washing. I used 4 colors, 4886, 434, 4206, and 4135. All of them played so nicely together, vibrant without being overwhelming. Even though Finull is a fingering weight yarn, I knitted on 4.5mm needles. My plan was to lightly felt the finished scarf, so I wanted a looser gauge to allow the fibers room to blow and felt a little bit. After the cutting came the braiding of the fringes, which honestly took longer than I expected. I spent about an hour and a half just on that step, but the result was so polished and so satisfying. Then came the felting. What I do when I felt, I like to soak it in water and then actually felt it in the dryer, not the washing machine. That gives me maximum control. I can put it in for just a few minutes, check on it, see if it's where I would like it to be, and then put it back in. With this one, I ended up with 6 5-minute rounds to get the texture exactly how I hoped. It's soft, it's dense, and it's very warm around my neck. Looking back, this project ended up being much bigger than what I planned. I thought it would be a fun, quick knit, and ended up using nearly 3 times as much yarn and time as I expected. But I'm glad I followed my instincts and let this project grow into such a big, beautiful scarf. And now it's something I truly love wearing. And surprisingly, it also became the perfect mindless knit. For 2 months, whenever I needed something calm and meditative, this scarf was there on my needles, patiently waiting. Sometimes the most unconventional projects end up being the most rewarding. This one reminded me how fun it can be to try something new, even if it means picking up your scissors. So this dress was a little bit of a gateway knit for me, not in the usual sense. It wasn't my first garment or even my first modification, but it was the first time I truly trusted my instincts to think, calculate, and just go with the flow. No traditional pattern, just a few loose ideas and the willingness to see what might happen. It changed how I see knitting. It showed me that I can start with one intention and then end up with something completely different. And it's still being a success. This dress started as this vest. And I used this vest pattern to anchor the neckline and the shoulders just enough to quiet the nerves. But from there, it became a freestyle adventure. I changed the yarn, the gauge, the texture, everything, but slowly but surely, the piece began to grow downwards and it asked to be a dress. So I listened. The stitch pattern on the vest is a simple and a tickle onto my lacy bone. It's 3 knit rows, 1 purl row, a row with a little yarn over and knit 2 together, and then back to purl row, and then the 3 knit rows, and so on and so on and so on. Just enough to keep things interesting, and when you knit back and forth, it's minimal purling, and that's a big win for me. When it came to the skirt, I pulled out my notebook and did some math. I knew how wide I wanted the hips to be, because I measured them. So I calculated the increases and spaced them evenly with stitch markers, and it worked. More than anything, it felt empowering to figure it out all by myself. These yarns were all from my stash, which made this even more special. A deep wine red Isager Highland wool, a rustic Isager tweed, and a dreamy strand of Garnsur mohair. Soft with a purpose behind it. I love blending them together and watching them become something unified. There was moments of doubt though, of course. Would it fit? Would I run out of yarn? Would it even look good? But the beauty of improvising is that there's always room to change direction. Just keep trying it on, adjusting as needed and reminding myself, this is my dress, and I get to decide how it turns out. This project reminded me, you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need a little curiosity, a little courage, and trust that your hands and your yarn will lead the way. Some project feels big before you even cast on. You don't quite know how they'll turn out or how long they will take, but you feel it. This one will matter. For me, that was this dress, my wedding dress. It's hard to even put into words what it meant to make this piece. Not just because it's one of the most meaningful days of my life, but because it holds so much of who I am. The stitches, the fabric, the way it moves, it's all been shaped by my hands and my choices and my love. From the moment I got engaged, I knew I wanted to make my dress. It wasn't even a question. I wanted to wear something made with my own hands. Something that felt like me, soft, detailed, romantic, and rooted in the craft that I love the most. The design itself was inspired by Kutowakika's stunning knitted wedding dress. Fitted at the top, gently flaring at the bottom, elegant and modern. I loved the shape and I knew I could build my own version from that silhouette. The skirt became a patchwork of lace pattern I loved for years. It started with a few magnolias from Camilla Wad and then some delicate dahlia leaves that are right over here from Lena Holme Samsøe. It felt like stitching together my own lace timeline. Every section a quiet nod to something I've admired, learned, or loved. The bodice was a little wild, completely improvised. Using textures from the Japanese Stitch Bible. If you own that book, you know there's a treasure chest of beauty, almost architectural stitch pattern. I wanted something soft but structured, and it gave me just the inspiration I needed. Now, did everything go according to plan? Definitely not. There was an Easter panic moment. I'd finished all of these pieces. I was ready to assemble them, and then I realized the upper skirt didn't match the rest of the dress. The gauge was off, it didn't fit, it was way too big. It was mild chaos, but with a bit of thinking and some very strategic light washing machine felting. I managed to trick the fabric into cooperating, and somehow that worked. After figuring that out, I felt empowered and made a classic crafter decision. I added beads, a lot of beads, just a few weeks before the wedding. Because why not? Each one was stitched on by hand, each one a tiny love note to the process. I lost count of the nights I spent with podcast playing and a lap full of delicate lace and bead. My shoulder got really sore, but I powered through, and I'm really glad I did. The yarn I've used for the whole dress is Sandnes Sunday. A yarn that is in a crisp white. It's light, soft, and so beautifully responsive to blocking. It made the lace really bloom, and that was so important to me that I used wool because that's the fiber I trust the most. But there's also, and just as important, the part that no one sees, the underdress, because of lace, of course. So I did sew a silk satin slip dress with a quite dramatic mermaid silhouette. Just narrow enough to support the shape, and just fluid enough that the knitted fabric flowed over it. That little secret layer made everything come together, and it gave the knitted fabric the support and structure it needed for such a special day. And when it was all finished and worn, I can truly say it was worth every late night, every moment of doubt, and every single pearl. Seeing it come to life on the day and feeling the weight of it as I walked down the aisle, the softness, the care woven into every stitch. It was more than just wearing something handmade. It was wearing a part of my own story. It might just have started as a wild idea, but now it's a part of my life's most beautiful moment. And honestly, I think I would do it over again. Not every knit turns out exactly how you hoped, and even when the pattern is beautiful, the yarn is lovely, and the vision is clear, sometimes impatience sneaks in. And for me, that was what happened with the Dori Vest. It's one of those pieces that should have been perfect, and honestly, in many ways, it still is. The design is beautiful, the texture is dreamy, and the color, oh my gosh. But I got a little too eager to finish, and I didn't add those extra few rounds I knew that would make the armholes just right. And now, they're a little bit too snug. It has so many of the things I love. It's cropped, it's flowy, it's soft brioche texture, and the sweetest little side ties right here that make it feel just a little bit special. It's a classic construction, and you start at the top, at the back panel, and then you pick up for the front and you knit downwards. Everything comes together with a ribbing at all of the edges. It should have been a total win. But in my eagerness to finish, I rushed a little, and now the armholes are just a bit too snug. Not unwearable, but not as comfortable as they could have been. 2025 might just have been the year that I finally learned those just a few more rounds really are worth it. That said, I still adore the finished piece. I used Rauma Fivel in the color 09, a rich deep blue that somehow goes with everything in my wardrobe. Fivel is a lovely wool. It's soft for Norwegian standards, but it's still quite rustic. It has this comforting texture I really enjoy. I knit mine on 4mm needles to match the gauge, since I tend to knit a bit looser. And brioche, it's always a bit of a commitment. Every row takes twice as long, but the texture it creates is so lush and dimensional. This little vest took me almost 3 months to finish, but honestly, I didn't mind. Even with the snug armholes, I've already worn it layered over crisp button-ups and fitted tees. It adds structure to an outfit while still feeling handmade and cozy. A quiet little showpiece that somehow worked with everything. Next time I'll slow down, probably, maybe, but even with its imperfections, this has made its way to my mother, who gets a lot more wear out of it. This project was a joy from start to finish. The yarn, the color, the pattern, all favorites. And somehow they came together in that rare way where everything just worked. The Venilia tee quietly became one of my most satisfying knits of the year. It's designed by Sari Nordlund, one of my absolute favorite designers. It's everything I love in a summer knit. It's light, it's airy, it's elegant without being overcomplicated. The lace yoke is delicate and thoughtful, with just enough structure to shape the neckline beautifully. It elevates the whole tee while still feeling wearable, simple, and soft. The top-down construction starts with a lace yoke that drew me in right away. It's delicate but not fragile, decorative without being fussy. It gives me just enough structure to elevate the whole piece. The stitch pattern itself has this natural flow to it. It's satisfying and it's clear. I used Mondim, a non-superwash fingering weight Portuguese wool, hand dyed by La Bien-Aimée in one of my all-time favorite colorways, Yellow Brick Road. It's soft in a rustic way, it's wearable next to skin, but still full of texture and personality, and it enhances the lace beautifully because it's so tightly spun. This yarn has followed me through a few projects now, and it never disappoints. As of modifications, I did not make a lot, but I did make a few. I finished the sleeves and the hem with this double knit edge instead of ribbing. It gives this clean, modern line that doesn't compete with the lace. I also sized down and added extra short rows just after the yoke to adjust for my narrow shoulders. Circular yokes can be tricky on me, but I think these tweaks made it sit better. Open without falling off, elegant without feeling exposed. And that said, the neckline is still wider than what I usually wear, but it's totally wearable. This tee doesn't need to shout, it simply fits well. Not just on the body, but the whole mood of the shirt. It's one of those rare pieces that quietly slips into your wardrobe and just stays there. I've already worn it layered under cardigans and tossed over dresses. It plays so nicely in every season, or at least the season that has passed. But I'm sure I'll carry this one into the summer as well. In the end, that's what this tee has represented for me. The quiet magic of making something that fits both your body and your life. It's not overly flashy, but every time I slip it on, I feel just a little bit more like myself. Comfortable, creative, and capable. And maybe that's the highest praise a handmade garment can earn. Not that it turned out perfect, but that it feels like you when you wear it. So, the Isabella sweater is more than just another finished knit. It's a milestone. It is my very first design. This one has been quietly taking shape behind the scenes for a long time now. Living in my spreadsheets, scribbled notes, and late night what-if ideas. A slow build of everything I've learned over the years of knitting and modifying. Those tiny tweaks that make my body feel better and feel more at home in what I wear. The Isabella is the clearest expression of that personal blueprint so far. I've started with a raglan construction. Simple, familiar, and flexible, but instead of the usual increase every other round, I've added a few extra increases at the top of the sweater to create more room in the chest while keeping the sleeves trim and neat. It's a small shift, but it changes the whole balance. The raglan gets the right length, and I also get the right amount of stitches for my chest and my arms. For the neckline, I worked in the flat instead of adding short rows, creating a slightly open front and a gentle lift in the back. It's become one of my favorite ways to shape necklines. No fuss, just openness and clean lines. The yarn brought it all to life. I've used Helix by La Bien-Aimée in the colorway Lisa, a rich deep pink with these subtle burgundy shadows and soft gray undertones. I held it double and it gave me a fabric that's light but grounded with just the right amount of drape and bounce. The sleeve detail, a soft lifted texture, turned out exactly how I'd hoped. Simple but with personality. And now I'm ready. I'm finishing up the testing of the sweater, but I'm going to take my time. Since this is my first time, I hope to release it during the spring, maybe. We'll see. So this one was love at first touch. Helgesens makes my very first project using cashmere, and I have to say, I love it. There's something about working with such a soft, light, and beautifully drapey yarn that transforms even the simplest of knit into something really special. Yes, it is a luxury, but for small next to skin pieces like a scarf, it feels like the kind of indulgence that's absolutely worth it. The pattern is by Norwegian designer Inga Semmingsen. The design is beautifully minimal. It's a garter stitch shawl knit lengthwise. It's shaped with German short rows in a way that creates this gentle point at one hand, and it tapers on the other side. It's subtle, but this little asymmetry gives it a quiet, modern edge that I really love. Nothing loud, just thoughtful shaping that makes it feel intentional. I knit mine in two shades of Kit Couture's 100% cashmere in deep burgundy and warm taupe. And they were really such a lovely pair. The burgundy has a richness and depth, a little drama, and the taupe brings calm and softness. Together they create this muted contrast that feels elegant and grounded. It's striking, but it's not flashy. Despite the shaping, the knitting was incredibly simple and meditative. It became my go-to for in-between projects. The one I picked up with a coffee in the morning or when winding down in the evening. No charts, no counting, just a soft, steady rhythm that made time slow down in the nicest way. The yarn did split slightly sometimes, but it wasn't a big issue. Just something to keep in mind. The softness and the drape more than made up for it. Finishing this scarf reminded me how powerful simplicity can be. No complicated charts, no dramatic shaping, just quiet texture, soft color and lines and yarn that invites you to slow down. It's not the kind of project that demands attention, but it's the kind you reach for. And maybe that's the best kind of luxury. Not flashy or loud, but quietly perfect for the life you're actually living. I can't knit with cashmere every day, but after this, I do understand the appeal. And I already know this won't be my last time saying yes to softness. So this project has been a bit of a roller coaster. The Slanting slipover has been one of those knits that has never been rushed and never urgent, but it became one of those projects that stayed with me between everything else. But now that it's finished, I'm sitting with quite mixed feelings. There is so much I like about it. First of all, I used Isager Aran Tweed, a rustic, tweedy single-ply wool full of texture and personality. The shade I went for was this soft gray with this joyful little flecks of color. Subtle but full of life. It felt like the right match for a piece I wanted to be both cozy and visually interesting. I have doubled the collar for a bit of structure and left the sides open with just a single button holding the front piece and the back piece together. But the shoulders, this is where I'm a bit unsure. The pattern places all of the shaping along the top of the shoulder, which for me, with softer curves and a more rounded shape, feels a bit off. It sits fine technically, but it doesn't quite land. It's made me think a lot about how we shape garments and how small shifts in construction can really change the way a piece fits and feels. This project also brought up thoughts around size inclusivity. The pattern tops out on 112 centimeters, 44-inch bust. And while I was able to make some modifications, I really believe that pattern should reflect the full range of bodies that make up our community. So going forward, I will be a bit more intentional about highlighting designers who prioritize that. But I'm still planning to share a video about modifying patterns, and this slip over gave me a lot to reflect on, and hopefully it will be the perfect case study for that video as well. In the end, this make is a reminder that simple doesn't always mean easy, and that thoughtful details don't guarantee a perfect fit. But they do invite us to keep learning, adjusting, and asking what feels good on our bodies. And in that way, the slanting slipover still feels like a success. Soft, rugged, and thick knit, I'm glad I have made. So, even if 2025 hasn't been my most productive year, it's been filled with meaning. The project have been slow, thoughtful, and full of those small, satisfying moments of learning and joy. I hope something here has inspired you. Maybe to cast on something new, or to see your own making with a bit more curiosity and gentleness. And if you enjoyed these projects, I'd love for you to check out my latest podcast episode. I'll leave it right over here, where I share what's currently on my needles and what I'm dreaming of next. If you enjoyed this project, I'd love you to check out my latest podcast episode. That's where I jump into what's currently on my needles and what I'm dreaming to cast on next. And now, I'm looking ahead at 2026, a new year for deep dives into construction, more improvisation, and of course, a lot of color. As always, keep knitting what brings you joy.